Excuse me, sir. As you well know, you were speeding. Man, the law done away with. Sir, you were speeding, and you're gonna have to pay this ticket, or you're gonna have to go to court. Man, the law done away with in Christ. Grace. Nigga, you going to jail. What's up, BC Dynasty? This is your boy, the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. JB Zion. Y'all show me some love. Shalom, peace, blessings, life, and prosperity. Shalom first to my Israelite family, my Israelite brothers and sisters. Shalom as well to my Gentile viewers. I love you all with the love of the Most High. And shout out to my melanated race of the chosen people of the Most High, Yah Yoruba. Benai Ephraim of the tribe of Joseph, the son of Jacob, i.e. the son of Israel. I'm an Israelite, y'all. Welcome back to your favorite dreaded hero, Mr. JB Zion. And y'all, we're going to hit it, y'all. So as you guys know, this is a follow-up to the previous video that I did on the law of God and whether or not the law is done away with. Now, this is just a follow-up to kind of clear up some misconceptions, kind of answer that blatant question that, okay, JB, we know that the law is perfect. We know that it's the attributes of God, but none of us flawless. We make mistakes every day. So I do want to kind of allow you to understand from an Israelite perspective why the law is so vital. Mainly, in fact, because the law has to do with government, rulership, changing this world. Y'all got to understand. Now, I know it was fun, like the intro I did, you guys. It was meant to be creative, make you guys laugh, but it is a heavy topic, right? So if I go out right now and let's say I don't know, go rob a convenience store. There are laws that are in place, right, to govern civil order, law and order, all these things. And we all know that. Not to kill, not to murder. There's a judicial system for if you commit a crime, this many years you serve. So when we talk about the law and is it done away with, first of all, we've already talked about in Psalms 19, it says that the law is perfect, converting the soul. So we understand that the law is not the issue. The issue, as we saw in Romans chapter 7, was this internal strife within each one of our souls where the thing that I want to do, JB, I can't do. And the thing that I don't want to do, I find myself doing. What manner of man is this? What manner of wretched man? That's the sin issue. But understand, our sinful, flawed bodies have nothing to do with the perfection of God in terms of doing away with his character. So the law's not done away with, but the penalty of us falling short has been laid on the back of Yeshua, has been whipped into his flesh. He paid the price for our falling short. So nobody's denying that. So when we talk about the law and why it's so vital, even though we understand all that, we need to understand that the law has to do with government and the law has to do with how this earth is run, right? And this is where Israel comes in. So you guys, I'm going to go ahead and start out. I'm going to go ahead and make a bold claim. JB, is the law done away with? No and yes at the same time. I know that's kind of, but I'm going to explain why. From an Israelite perspective, Israel is designed, created to adhere to the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. Our people, E1B1A, Yoruba, Igbo people, West African tribes, all of these sub-Saharan Negroes that descend from Israel, right? We were created to show forth the glory of God. Now, if you look at Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6, it says, "But Israel, I will set you above all nations that be upon the face of the earth, for you are a holy people unto the Lord your God." Right? Powerful. This is further collaborated in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. Now, it's also mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 14, but I'm trying to get to Deuteronomy 28 because it shows you something. In Deuteronomy 28, now we already know about the curses, but the curses come from our people not keeping the commandments. Let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 2. That it says, "If you will keep these statutes and commandments, O Israel, all these blessings will come upon you." So we understand that the blessings were for Israel and designed for them to be set above all nations if they kept the law of God. And let me make it a little bit clear for you guys. Our people suffer from the curses of Deuteronomy 28. There's no question about it, right? We're the borrower, not the lender, right? We have all these diseases and disorders that plague us because of not the diet that we eat, which is really Leviticus 11 and 14 in terms of us not keeping the dietary law. We are plagued directly from this stuff, right? Our heritage, us guarding our heritage, we suffer from a lack of identity. It's just so much stuff. The homicide rates, the self-hatred, the diseases, the how we're always at the bottom, and the stranger comes into America and he set up a business, he get a business loan and we can't even get approved for one. And you got the ching-chang people owning the chicken shops in the black community. Y'all don't want to talk to me. But the reason we suffer the penalty is because we are a spiritual people meant to live the life of Torah. That is the designation of Israel. That if we don't do it, we suffer the penalty. So why did the Most High set us up like that? Like, if we do it, we're above everybody. If we don't, we're at the bottom. Because the Most High has a way of correcting you. He's like a corrective GPS. If you don't be great and be the greatest nation on earth, I'm going to whoop you until you have no other option, oh son, firstborn son of Zion, until you have no other choice but to submit to the culture of your forefathers. And that's what Israel's meant to do. So that's the yes part. We should keep the law in terms of Israelites. Now, Gentiles is a little bit tricky, right? Now, for the most part, the early church was dealing with Gentile Hellenists, right? These are assimilated Israelites that were keeping the Greco-Roman culture. They were worshiping Jupiter, Zeus. They were in the gymnasiums. They forsook the heritage of their forefathers, and they wanted to be in the Colosseums butt naked. They wanted to eat pork chops and ribs in the temple. Y'all don't want to talk to me, right? Israel had forsaken all their commandments, right? So over time, they became assimilated. Now, there were decrees that were made. I'm going to do a video on it, y'all, where the Greeks made it illegal to call yourself a Jew. So that Hellenization process created a group of lost sheep, right? Now, y'all see where I'm going with Gentiles, right? There were Gentiles that were actually Jews. John chapter 7 verse 35 says, where shall he go that we can't find him? Shall he go to the diaspora? Shall he go to the scattered Jews, or Israelites among the Gentiles? Right? So our people have been mixed in and living like everybody else, right? And this is why you had Gentiles that were actually Israelites. So the early church was trying to figure out, what do we tell these people? Now, the Israelites, they let them know, Paul and the Council of James, that they will find out about Moses. Just stay away from pork, meats that are sacrificed to idols. If you look into Zeus in the Greco-Roman period, they sacrifice swine's flesh unto their deities. That's crazy, y'all. So they're low-key trying to get Israel back on the right track. Now, there is grace for our people being in captivity, but Israel is ultimately meant to turn back to their God and turn back to the law, statutes, and commandments. Now, that type of Gentile is a different thing than a Gentile, your European people, the Edomite Roman community. Are they meant to exemplify the law, statutes, and commandments? Nope. Just to keep it straight like that. The other nations are not designed with this burden, right? This burden and blessing, this birthright, to be a light and strive for perfection and live Torah and not eat swine's flesh. The other nations are not put in that burden, if you will, right? But what I will say is, in the coming age, that is the age to come, in the kingdom era, the world will be run, with Israel being the ruling class, using the law, statutes, and commandments. When Yeshua returns, the governments of this earth will be run by Torah. The feast dates, the way we eat. You have to show up at certain periods for the high holy days, right? This is how the earth is going to be run. And you see the church transitioning to Israel even now as the awakening is going on. Our people are waking up. They're turning back to Torah. We're showing how Christians, if you say you follow Yeshua, Yeshua kept the law, statutes, and commandments. Now, this has always been in the Bible. But Israel brings that revelation because that is our birthright, right? The service, the ordinances of God, the covenants, all of this is made with Israel. So you have the Most High, you have Yeshua, and you have Israel, and you have the other nations, right? And I talked about that in another video, a previous video. You guys, I'm going to try to drop that card for you guys. But basically, yes and no. The other nations don't have the burden of keeping Torah. Israel, we have the heritage, the right, the privilege to keep Torah, to be an example to the nations, to show them why it's the best thing to do, right? By us living it, by us showing how you function when you're eating right, when you're taking care of your body, when you're praying and fasting and seeking the Most High. we're going to persuade them by our actions, right, that Yeshua did it. And Yeshua is the way, the truth, and the life. And in him is the example of how we ought to live, right? So that's just a little follow-up, guys. I want to come back with that. I do want to also go over a few scriptures before I let you guys go, specifically the council that talked about these things. Now, this kind of gets deep. So you have Peter. Now, Peter is a Jew. And his specialty was going to Israelites that were Jews, quote unquote. That means Israelites that practiced Torah. That was his mission. That was the mission of the 12. Now, I'm going to do a series on the historical gospel and show you the different layers of the gospel, right? What was Yeshua's mission? What was the mission of the 12? And then Paul's mission, which is a little bit different. So Peter had a run-in with Cornelius in Acts chapter 10. And a lot of people say he was a Gentile. The scripture just says he was a part of the Roman Italian army or band, right? So just to let you guys know, he was an Hellenized Israelite. Now, I can go into that in a separate video, but basically, Peter is going to a Gentile, an Israelite not keeping Torah. And he blends in, he sits down, he eats with the cat. Now, all of this was just totally forbidden. The Jews had no dealings with anybody not keeping Torah, even their own people. So in Acts chapter 11, he has this big discord where he lets James and them know that the Most High chose me to do this work, to go to the Hellenized, the diaspora, the lost sheep that Christ went to, that he says in Matthew chapter 15, verse 24. Peter adopts this upon himself. Now, as you all see, a lot of my Israelite family already know this. Peter was kind of that fake break Negro. I'm going to keep it straight with y'all, right? Because he came from such a rich Torah lifestyle, he had a tendency to discriminate against other Israelites, those that weren't keeping the Torah. So then Paul comes on the scene. And Paul says that I'm going after those people. Now, when you know the who, what, when, where, and why, that Paul himself was a Roman-born citizen. So he was a Gentile Roman citizen, but ethnically he was an Israelite. That's like an African-American. I'm an American, but ethnically I'm an Israelite of the tribe of Ephraim, right? So you have Paul, he's well-learned, well-studied, doctor of the law, and he shows that Christ's blood atoned for these cats. It's the greatest testament, the greatest hope of a family reunion that you will ever see. You have a divided family. This family, Judah and Judea, those that lived in the land keeping Torah, and you had these estranged Israelites that were cut off from their people. So the reason I'm bringing this up with the whole law discussion is that a lot of Christians will point out that Paul, upon the council meeting with James, they said, don't put no burden on these Gentiles. Let's just tell them not to eat things sacrificed unto idols. Let's just tell them to abstain from those pollutions, abstain from fornication and all that craziness. But if you look at what they're telling the Gentiles to do, right? This is Torah. Because in the next verse, James says, for every Sabbath they have Moses being taught in the synagogues. What is he saying? They will learn the rest, right? Let's not put a burden on them too heavy. They're fresh babes. They're on the sincere milk. Let's not tell them about Shabbat and these things early on, because they will learn in time as they learn more about Moshe HaNavi. First, we got to tell them, don't be doing no fornicating and don't be eating no swine's flesh. Wait, it didn't say swine's flesh. It said meats sacrificed unto idols. When you do your history in the book of Maccabees, these foods that they were eating were pork chops in the temple. And I'll get into Antiochus. I'm going to do a historical gospel prelude kingdom series where I'm going to talk more about that. But basically, the law you will find was never done away with. Paul himself kept it. They had mercy upon new Gentile Hellenized Israelites coming in because they come from, just like today. Like I'm teaching my people that we need to turn back to the commandments, but they used to American sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits. They used to Sunday worship. They used to Easter baskets and pagan Christmas trees. They used to being called a byword, a Crayola color, two continents slapped together. So you're transitioning the people that are known as Gentiles because African American, that's a Gentile byword. This was going on in the scriptures. That's why the Bible calls these Hellenized Israelites Gentiles. But in other instances, like John chapter 7, verse 35, we see specifically they were Jews scattered among the Gentiles. Watch this. In Acts chapter 21, James says, wow, look at Paul's ministry. Look how many Jews there are that believe. Watch this. How many Jews there are among the Gentiles. Understand, those were the Gentiles that the early church were going to. That is the mission of Paul himself. When you understand the who, what, when, where, and why. Paul was a Gentile. He was born in Rome. He was like an American. But he knew his ethnicity, and he was prevailing upon his people to turn back to the law, statutes, and commandments, but spoon-feeding it to them over time. So Israel, your duty is to turn back to your heritage, the law, statutes, and commandments, and to live that life so that the nations may see you as that light and be like, man, maybe we need to do this stuff. Christ did do this stuff. And if Christ is perfect, we need to strive for perfection. But that comes from Israel doing what they're supposed to do. So, Israel, we got to turn back to our heritage, keep these laws, statutes, and commandments in the faith of Yeshua, right? And we will watch as the kingdom is bestowed back unto us, and we turn back to the rulership that the Most High prophesied for Israel to be above all nations, and peace and love, and in a kingdom era of peace, love, and justice in the earth. And with that, y'all, I love y'all. Yoruba, Benai Ephraim of the tribe of Joseph. Peace and blessings to the 12 tribes. Shalom. All praises.